And we are live. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Much appreciated. Let me make sure we're seeing the chat. Indeed. Okay, yeah, we're good. We're good. So hope everyone's doing well. Today's going to be a fun one. Let me make sure I can hear myself. The audio is good. Yeah, okay, we're good. We're good. Thank you so much. So we're gonna today go over this painting process of making pesto. I figured a live stream would be the perfect format because this process is long, arduous. We can jump back and forth, rewind, move fast forward, and look at all the details in extreme detail. Look at look at all the details of the process in extreme detail. Hey, Adria, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. Yeah, my knee is doing much better. Went to physio today. I'm doing it 3 times a week, and it's really improving. What I'm gonna do is we'll let some people in and then we'll get started. Hey, Diresh, how are you doing? The Gamer, what game are you currently playing? Let me know. Hey, Kyra, hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Really hope everyone's doing well. I've been keeping busy. I'll show you. Actually, let's see what it would look like. Yeah, if we go back to this format. I have two interesting things to show you here. The first one is this painting. You've probably seen it on Instagram. A bit of a crazy one. Kind of can't believe I made that. So there's that. The Fabergé egg. And then, as you may know, I'm auctioning this painting. So if you want an opportunity to get a painting of mine for a good price, because it's an auction, so you set the price. It's interesting because, let me see, where was I? Is it here? Yeah. I'm just going to pause this and get rid of this for a second. I wanted to show you, do I have this window open? Yeah, I should have it open, the auction. There we go. So let me refresh. I'm super grateful. It's already on $70, 70 USD. If you want to get a painting for a really good price, next bid is going to be $80. That's your opportunity. I'm going to go back to that towards the end of the live stream, but I'm super grateful even if it just sells now and that's the final bid. Super grateful for that. Yeah, so I'm going to let the process run here, and then I'm going to start reading your chats. And then let me just move this thing. The chat box is obstructed. There we go. So yeah, we're going to answer some questions, look at what you're into, what you're doing. Hey, Chris, hi from Calgary. Marjorie, good morning, all. Thank you for being here, Marjorie. H, hope you're doing well. Hey, John, hope you're well as well. Thank you so much for the kind words on the Fabergé egg. This process, by the way, runs at 2.5 hours, so I can just let it run. We'll watch it together. Let me know if you have any questions about it. What you're seeing me doing right now is, you know, one thing I discovered, especially when it comes to colors that are meant to be quite vibrant and saturated, is I like to take them one wash at a time and use very thin and clean paint. So I'm just using layers of clean yellow. I don't know why I find that it works really well for me. Building it up step by step, because if I go too dark, I may lose some of the vibrancy, if that makes sense. Hey, Dejan, or Diana, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. Hope you're doing well. Kyra, how many years have you been painting? It's been now since 2015-16, I would say. So that would be 8 years probably of seriously doing it. Closing in on a decade almost. Diresh, I'm actually an artist. I'm not a gamer. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not really a gamer too, but there are some games I like to play, so some video games. Robin, hey Robin, how are you doing? Good morning, Liron. Happy to be here today. Summer break keeps me so busy with my girls. Really enjoying the quick video on this gorgeous result. Thank you. Yeah, so I ended up with a process that was, again, 3 hours long, 2.5 hours long. I decided I'll just do a time lapse because I did not want to cut anything out of it. But now you can watch the process. Here you'll see me doing the exact same thing. I'm painting a highlight. Now let me open up my own live stream full screen. I want to make sure that it's large enough to see some of the details. Yeah, I think we're good. I think you're seeing most of it. That's fine. Because I can definitely blow it up higher. and larger on the screen, let me know if you'd like that. But I think we're good. So yeah, I'm painting the highlights. I like sometimes to paint them to show where they are and where they're gonna be. I can just kind of decide to ignore the title that I have. And oh yeah, I have this thing locked here. The video, I can just decide to do this kind of a thing, just so that you can see more of the details. I like to have a nice layout and then I end up not using it. It's very silly of me, but whatever. At least now you get to see a bit more of the details. And I'm gonna zoom in probably later on, we'll see. Hello, Takumui. How are you doing? Ira, hi from Madrid. Nancy, good morning from Akron, Ohio. My name says hi, Liron. Hey, Cindy. Oh no, I won't be able to catch the replay later. No worries. I'm gonna leave the replay on. Adria, I finally got to go into an art supply store for the first time yesterday. A friend took me on a surprise trip. Oh, that's fun. I was a kid in a candy store. Yeah, that's how it goes. Especially if you're familiar with a lot of tools and supplies you like, and it's super fun. Yeah. So yeah, now we're coming up on what I think is one of the more important washes here, by the way. And I can actually just manually zoom in. Perhaps I'll do that. I want you to see, no, that's actually, we need that. I want you to see some of these details up close. I have no idea why that happened. That was strange. Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what I'm doing wrong here. Sorry, I'm still working out, like, how do I want to use OBS, so... it may be a little awkward. Let's just block the ad for the Watercolor Realism course. There we go. This is a really important wash, and I do want to show you. Sometimes when I want to achieve a realistic impression, a big part of it is... I talked a bit about using lighter washes, because that gives me more time to work on them and improve the edges and all of those good stuff. And I'll really take my time. So you see, I made a relatively small shape, and I'm taking my time to smoothen an edge or to lift or to reorganize a part of it that maybe I'm not so sure it works. So that's just my way of doing it. But I find it works well. It allows me enough time to focus on one given area. And honestly, if I had a bit more courage, I might have been able to push it to be the final result completely, like to get a wash done in one go, like the coffee cup that I did. But that just wasn't really the mode I was in when working on this painting. So yeah. Let's see. Marjorie, my mother and two of my aunts used to blow out eggs, cut a hole inside, and do small vignettes on the inside. That's cool. My aunts were of the White House Christmas tree and sold in the Smithsonian gift shop. Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, I wanted to... I think as a kid I did some art with eggs, but not too much. Because we don't have the whole Easter culture here. So yeah. Paula, hey, how are you doing? Good morning. My name says, Andy Evanson is having an online class later, but I'm here watching Liron painting this masterpiece. Thank you so much. Yeah, I believe I saw it in Andy's story or post. I believe he talked about it, but I haven't caught the details, and I had no idea it's today. Otherwise, I might have given it a closer look. But yeah. Edra, I walked up to the Daniel Smith section and told my friend I'll have all of this. Yeah. We don't have too much Daniel Smith here, but some stores do have a decent enough offering of them, and it's always fun. Daniela, hello, I'm from Brazil. You helped me a lot with your tutorials. Thank you so much. That's cool to hear. Thank you. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of kind comments in the last couple of days, so thank you so much. If you've watched the video, commented, much appreciated. Adria, I got a book that lets me swatch out my paint with the names and such. Oh, that's interesting. So does it come with Daniel Smith? Is it the dot card or is it an actual book? Let me know. Now, I'm slowly opening up this wash, as you can see. I'm slowly expanding it. The key is slowly, because I want to make sure, and you see the bead there. I'm using a lot of water. This gives me time, because this is a rather complex wash. There are so many details and reflections and colors and negative shapes on the kettle that I really wanted to capture as much of it as I can. It's the kind of washes I absolutely love. I'm pre-wetting here. This is actually a really interesting part. So I'm pre-wetting using a lot of water because I want to create a smooth transitions there, just like the reference photo, which you can barely see up there, but that's fine. It's good enough. So you see I get a smooth transition on the right. And it's those things that add up together to create an impression. If you can get all the edges somewhat accurate and all the colors and all the, and yes, the more you do this, the better, the more you develop your vision and noticing details, the easier it gets. In the beginning, it is quite tough. Now, this is where I am taking the picture, by the way, so you'll see a reflection of me, and that's relatively warm. So I'm going to switch over to some warm colors here. That's the minimum variation I get in this wash, but it was important for me to get that done. By the way, a lot of people ask me, how do you avoid blooms and cauliflowers, which nothing wrong with creating them, but if you do want to avoid them, it's about even levels of wetness. When I came back with that warm-ish brown red, it was the same level of wetness as the paint on paper, relatively speaking. The closer you can match it, the fewer you'll get. And you have to take into consideration, the moment you put something on paper, it starts to dry. So when you add on to that, you'll need a bit of thicker paint. I hope that makes sense. Let's see here. Oh, a lot of comments. Thank you so much to everyone who was here. If you can take a moment, by the way, to like the live stream, that's huge help. Helps it reach more and more people. Kyra, do you have a list of your favorite supplies in these brushes? Yes. You can go to freewatercolor.com/gear. Gear. You'll see all my stuff there. Free watercolor just with an O. It's not the UK watercolor. .com/gear. And you'll see it. Hey, Sujadith, how are you doing? The amazing Phoenix. Oh my god, he's streaming. Yeah, I'm streaming. I'm streaming once a week, pretty much. I did miss a few weeks because of all of the being sick and being under the weather. It was a nightmare, by the way. But yeah, I am streaming. Judith, hi Liron, happy to be back again. I'm still confused about which basic brush to buy here. I'm just a beginner at watercolor. Judith, I would say if you can try some stuff out at the store, I don't know if they do that. That would be the best. Just get something you're comfortable with. Even if you don't know if you're wrong about the kind you got, if there are better kinds, if there are, technically you didn't get the best one. I would say ultimately it's about becoming familiar with the brush you have, rather than the perfect one. You can't really go wrong with a Skoda, I think, for the most part. But you can start with something cheaper and you'll do really well too. You don't have to overthink it. Now adding some of the greens that are going to be highlights once we add the shadows. Right now they look just like greens, but this as soon as we'll darken everything around them, you'll see. I'm doing some wet and wet here. I don't even remember. I wanted to add some warmth for later, but not really a must here. My name. Liron, I realize you have a very strong sketch for your painting, very accurate to your reference. This is so overlooked as an element for good painting. Yeah, I find that if I have a solid sketch, it helps me, especially if I want a more detailed painting. If I don't, sometimes it can be to my detriment. As you've seen, I did recently a video where I'm painting with no pencil lines. That could be a huge advantage too. It really depends on the kind of result you're after. If you're really looking for a high level of accuracy, I find that I do need a more detailed, accurate sketch, which I traced, by the way. I traced this. Now you see the gray I'm adding, it's similar, but it's not identical. This is a bit more cool. It has a bit more blue in it, a bit more ultramarine and phthalo blue. So if you compare it to the lower one, is more of a clean neutral tint, and this one is a little warmer. It's a minor difference, but you can actually, if I move this a bit, you can see this in the reference photo. You can see that the top of the kettle is actually a bit cooler in color. By the way, it's so funny, my grandma and grandpa, who as I was growing up, they lived right next to this same house that was just divided in two. So I would see them every day and hear them speak their Iraqi Arabic every day. And kettle in Iraqi is ketli. It's a very similar word, which is always fun. There are a lot of similarities, weird ones you wouldn't even guess between Russian and Arabic, even in some cases. Sujanith, when you spray to prolong drying time, how far should we keep the spritzer? I would say quite far as you can get away with, because the closer you get, the larger drops you'll have. And I will add that lately I have not been doing it as much for this exact reason. I find that no matter the distance, I'll always get some droplets. And if I'm after a very smooth layer, it just prevents it. So if I absolutely have to, it's kind of an emergency, I will use a sprayer. But if I don't, I try to avoid it, but from afar regardless. Marjorie, did you try the Isabey brush yet? No, I haven't, but Marjorie, I wanted to email you, so I haven't gotten the chance yet. Let me show you. This one, sorry, cables. This one I painted with, I'll show you the specific palette. I painted with the Mission Gold. So thank you so much for that. I found, in particular, which one was it? The Permanent Rose. It was perfect for my very bright reds that I needed here, and my bright greens as well, by the way. I finally used one of the palettes more extensively in a full, complete process, and thank you so much. All of these couldn't have done them without some of the colors there, so much appreciated. Thank you for that. Let me set the painting aside here. But I will get to the Isabey, hopefully. Brushes is something I have to more kind of remind myself to try out. The different ones I have. Colors is much easier for me to just grab a palette and use that. But yeah. Ira, do you use granulating medium? If positive, any advice? I don't. I never used a granulating medium. I actually have one. Just haven't gotten the chance to use it. I have it here. Maybe one day I'll experiment with it. I have no idea like how much of it to use, what to do. I have no idea. So can't give you too many insights there. Adria, it's a painter's color diary. Oh, I want to look that up. It's interesting. Painter's color diary. Oh, okay, cool. I'll look that up. That's interesting. Has squares and lines inside, about 40 on each page, so I can document my paints and mixes. I hate making my own swatch cards, so this is helpful. Oh yeah, that saves probably a lot of work, gridding it out and all of that. Marjorie, I had less trouble with cauliflowers with Da Vinci paints. Interesting. Some paints stay wet for longer. I think if I had to guess, M. Graham will have a similar effect. Judith, I live in Jerusalem. Just tell me where to go. Yes, so I would go to Arta. I don't know if there's one in... Oh, yeah, there should be one in Jerusalem. Yeah, Arta should have the largest variety of brushes. You know the store, right? ARTA. Check it out. I don't remember the address, but they should have pretty much everything you need, including good paints, by the way. Jansart, hi Liron, very nice painting. Glad to see you did a full video. Thank you. Yeah, I decided to use the live stream as a leverage to show the whole thing. Hopefully that's fine. Nancy, this painting looks great in the early stages. I love when that happens. Yeah, and that doesn't always happen. That some paintings, you keep wondering throughout the process, will this amount to anything? And I had that exact experience with the egg, obviously, because it's a very fragmented painting. I was wondering the whole way through. By the way, Judith, I think you're welcome. I think you can tell them you're a teacher, or you know that you want a teacher's discount. They usually are quite nice with that. Maybe you won't get one, but maybe you do. It depends on the branch, I think. But maybe like a 10% or 25% off. They do tons of sales depending on the season. Sujanith, I adore Louise Damasi style. Wet on damp mostly, dampening small sections, then painting, then moving to the next section. However, I realize over time, continuous washes is the most important. Not necessarily, Sujanith. I think you can do a lot of paintings just completely in that approach. I think, by the way, especially for hot press paper, it becomes even more useful, because hot press paper, you really do need to use a lot of water if you want to make sure things don't dry super unevenly, because the paint tends to pull a little more. So I'd say that approach lends itself even better to hot press. There are a lot of paintings I work on that way. Even the coffee cup you can look at as something I painted that way. Pam, Good morning. Sorry I'm late. No worries. Thank you for being here. By the way, everyone, if you can take a moment and like the live stream, that'll be great. Helps more people find it. Marjorie, what did you think of Mission Gold's single pigment paints? I love them. I loved all of the paints, honestly. I didn't try all of them. I tried maybe about 15 of the palette, 12 maybe. I love them. They're great. There was one specific green I was having a bit of a hard time mixing. It's not the paint's fault. I just maybe didn't know which paint to reach into. But yeah, that's more on me. It was a kind of very bright turquoise, and I needed that for some of the highlights on the jewels, on the gemstones, and that was one that I had a bit of a hard time, so I started with kind of a phthalo emerald green, and then I added a bit of yellow to that to make it a little duller, but then it was very hard. But yeah, I loved most of them, most of the ones I tried. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Alone, Punit, bro, I'm from India. What? I guess it's palette, but it says patella, which is funny. Patale, because it's like the patella I dislocated. So yeah. But let me know what you mean. Pam, I use the Painter Color Diary too. It's great to keep track of what I have. Okay, single pigment paints. I've been reading about them. Advantages, opinions, multiple pigments, same question. Yeah, to me it's all the same, you know, but they say it's better for mixing. They say it's better for maintaining, you know, the strength and vibrancy of the color. Some people, I think, maybe their eye is keen enough to tell the difference. I'm kind of a weird brute force approach with paints and color selection. I'm not the best person probably to ask about that. Now, what you're seeing me do now is quite funny. So that's how I love to paint. So I'll have a very complex wash, like the kettle and the details and everything. And then as a rest, I'll choose a few areas that are simple. I see just a rectangle. I see it's a gray, it's a warm and cool gray, and I just very slow, here I'm spraying, but one of the only instances here that I spray. And I don't even remember why I did it. I wanted to lighten them up a bit, I think. But that's how I do it. I alternate between large washes that are tough and small washes that are simple and straightforward. I did the same thing with the Fabergé egg. I did the small gemstones, and then I did an area where I had more of a continuous wash. It's one of those ways to keep yourself entertained, you know, just to keep yourself entertained during the painting process. That's what I do very naturally. I just discovered it works for me. So yes. L'art du design. So nice to see the entire process. Thank you for that. Yeah, my pleasure. If you want like a full version where you don't see my face here and everything, I can release just a video of it without narration. Maybe I can put a background music or something just for people who want to watch the process itself. Because live stream format's a little different. So let me know. Because we're talking and I keep moving the video. If you'd like something like that, let me know. Because narrating 2.5 hours on top of this is gonna be way too much, but I can post just the video itself for sure. Buck, can someone say when and where today and Evenson's doing a demo? Yes, if someone can chime in, definitely. Sorry, Albab plays gaming. Maybe try increasing the volume because I hear myself pretty well on my end, so I don't know if it's something on your end maybe. But I'll try speaking a little louder. No worries. Yeah, I'd be curious to see. Maybe I'll join. Maybe we can open up Andy's stream and stream. What do you call it? Stream bomb when you just visit someone else's stream on a live stream. Sujanith, hey Liron, may I ask why? Of course, I won't do that. By the way, may I ask why you are hardly seen in your Discord? Yeah, I can see excellent discussions there. I wish you were seen sometime. Yeah, I just. There was so much, and every couple of days I'm like, oh, I need to log into Discord, and I just don't get the chance. It's so silly. It's something I will try and be more aware of. I've just been doing so many things simultaneously. the goal of the Discord for me was never to really monitor closely. I always am like that, even with the Facebook groups I started in Watercolor. I just keep it very chill and let the discussions happen. But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's my Discord channel, so I should be there. So I would apologize for that and say I will do a better job, hopefully. But definitely, yeah, it's just something that it keeps falling down to the bottom of the priorities, unfortunately. With the videos and posts and marketing and replying to comments and messages, I should definitely devote more time there. Marjorie, P.S. I used a mini ice cube tray to put the mission paints, cutting out more room for paints I use more often. Oh, that's a nice idea. That's really cool. Adria, made a mistake on my current painting, a volcano. I lightened the pencil lines as much as possible. They can be seen in the lava, even though a fairly opaque yellow and some darker orange. Yeah, you know, I'll have to see it to really comment. To me, these things don't really matter as much. I don't mind them. A lot of my paintings, you can see the pencil lines, and honestly, I'm all for it. I don't mind that at all. So probably won't mind it in your painting too. Now I'm doing something fun. I talked about this in the quick video I did. Sometimes it's very hard to know what to paint around in terms of highlights, so you're just better off mapping them, actually painting them first. So I'm just painting them, and I recognize that some highlights are cooler, some highlights are warmer. Now it looks funny because it doesn't look like a highlight yet. But of course, once I add the dark paint next to it, it's going to start looking like a highlight. So it's a very interesting way to go. So some of these, I'm using basically a gray mix that sometimes I put more blue in it, sometimes I put more red and yellow in it. And that helps me to know what to put there, where to skip. So yeah. Let's see. Palette, yeah. My palette, by the way, yeah, if you ask about this one, it's the Mijello 18 Wells Airtight palette. The one I'm using mostly in the studio. The other one is a different one, custom one that Marjorie sent me. My name, Liron, I saw you left the mid-bright section with paper white. Have you thought before layering a thin wash of warm color to make it warmer, or do you leave it paper white? Left the mid-bright section. I'm not sure where exactly you refer to, because if I'm not mistaken, that middle section does have a thin wash over it. I might have skipped that part, but I think very little of this is paper white. Definitely not a large area. I'm not sure. Yeah, I will Lard do this on. Hopefully I will. What I use in Alone Pundit, if you ask about what palette to get on a tight budget or a cheaper one, that's a good one. The Mijello 18 Wells. It's not good for outdoors. It is great for studio. It has large mixing areas. It's just not as portable. It's not comfortable. You can't hold it with it. It doesn't have a thumb ring that helps you hold the palette like this with one hand. But that's a good one to use. That's a good one to get first. So Janith, yes, I would do that. Okay. Ira, have you ever had an issue painting a certain subject? And if so, how do you learn from that? I've attempted a false scene so many times and it doesn't turn out and it gets so frustrating. Yeah, I can imagine what the kind of scene you referred to. You know, usually scenes that just have a lot going on with a lot of bright colors, they can look very pretty as a picture, but then when you try painting them, it's a nightmare. Especially if there's fall scenes, there's a lot of maybe leaves falling, and that orange is always so misleading, and it looks vibrant, but then when you mix it vibrant, it doesn't look the same. I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes when it happens to me, I just discover I didn't really enjoy painting it, and that's what led to a bad result. That happens very often. Sometimes that's the usual case. I find that it's necessary to edit it a bit in my mind before I paint it. The reason it doesn't work is because I haven't edited it in my mind enough. Because as is, I just don't like the way it looks. Or I don't find it comfortable or interesting to paint. So some scenes will require a bit more editing. Now, I am perfectly fine with just quitting on a scene and just not painting the same kind of scene again. I'm perfectly fine with having 6, 7, 8, 10 types of scenes that I enjoy mostly, but I find that there's more. There's always more, you know? I enjoy painting still life, seascapes, landscapes, small objects, portraits, everything. You can find everything. And if one specific scene eludes you, then nothing happened, really. One more thing you can do is look for a tutorial of someone painting a similar scene, someone who really is strong technically. I would say a lot of my tutorials aren't that, by the way. So someone like Yongchen, someone like that, or Misulbu, find a tutorial where they paint the exact same scene and paint based on that. That could be a really good idea, I think. Hope that helps. I know it's a bit of a tough one sometimes. Marjorie, did you film the painting of the kitchen with the chefs? It's my favorite. For 5 years, I worked in a commercial kitchen, and my daughter does all the food for her private pub. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember you mentioned that. Marjorie, I actually have a video of that. I don't remember what it's called, but I can find it and send a link. I have a video showing some of that process. Liron, OCD, painting, focus, I think. I think it's called... something like the secret to where will I find it? I have a video on it, but the fact I'm having a hard time finding it means a lot. Says a lot. I will find it and drop a link in a second. If you don't mind, I will look it up because I can find it relatively fast on my channel. See here. Wasn't that all? Yeah, okay. How to paint a masterpiece today. That's the name. So the video you're looking for is this one, Marjorie. How to paint a masterpiece. I think that's the right link, hopefully. Yep. Yeah, that's the video. You get to see a lot of the process. I think you refer to this one. I have no idea of how you created the atmosphere. Yeah. Look at it. It's pretty nice. So Janith, do you have meetups or urban sketchers groups in your city? Not really. By the way, look at how I'm painting now. I'm painting around the highlights I set up earlier. So Janith, I've been playing around with the idea of doing a would be a gift to us. Yeah, I will do that, Sujadith. And Alba plays, hopefully, yeah, you can hear me better now. You're welcome. I've been playing around with the idea of doing kind of a workshop thing in Tel Aviv for maybe, 5, 6 people. I used to do meetups. There are actually some videos on YouTube you can see from there, but not lately. Plus, we moved out of Tel Aviv, so it's even harder to do. But I do feel like we'll go back, return someday to live in Tel Aviv, and then I'll probably do more. But yeah, if anyone's coming over to Israel for a visit, let me know. Usually, I ended up meeting a few people over the years. Marjorie, I used the Mijello for M. Graham. I should say, Studio Palette. Yeah, that's a good one. And M. Graham, of course, is great too. So Janith, I find Saunders Waterford cold press a little less absorbent than Arch. Even lifting colors is a little difficult. Is this your opinion too? Actually not sure. Oh, my name, you knew how to paint a masterpiece. Thank you so much. You completed you remembered the name of the video. That's awesome. Much appreciated, because I forgot it. That makes me happy. Really, I'm grateful that you're familiar with it. Yeah, so Janith, I don't have the same experience. I do alternate between Arch and Saunders. It could be a bad batch. It could be sometimes the paper that was on top can get a little dusty, and then its absorbency is hurt. Or some points you get some blind spots when you paint. That could be that happened to me before, but I'm not sure. Buck, this demo is allowing me to rethink my first light washes. I think I'm going way too fast, which is setting me up for further struggles. Buck, that's a great insight. One thing I found, this will really vary from one person to another, but one thing I found is if I can start slow, I will find the rhythm to accelerate. If I just go blindly, sometimes it works out. Sometimes I'll get a beautiful, loose result that's very... it has that spontaneous magic to it, but very often I'll just make tons of mistakes. But if I start slowly and a little more planned out, even when I did the coffee cup, by the way, alla prima, you know, I started slowly. You saw me slowly working on that wash, even though no pencil lines, no preparation like the usual paintings. I started really slowly. So I find that if I at least start slow, I will find the path to acceleration, and very, very quickly I'll just be back to the usual faster pace, you know? So it's almost like if you just start a little slow and careful and measured, you'll find a natural rhythm. Whereas if you just do the fast rhythm just for the sake of doing it, sometimes you can get lost in there. I can really relate to that. So yeah. Pierre Schilling, that's I love that last name. I haven't seen you live for a while. Love the curly hair. Thank you, Helen. Much appreciated. Yeah, I've been doing live. I think last week I did one. But yeah, I took a bit of a break because I was so, you know, the knee pain. I could barely sit. You know, all I could do is really sit down on the sofa, do some light physiotherapy, and be in pain. But yeah, now things are much better. And then I was sick a couple of days. I was completely out then. So yeah. You got it, Buck. Yeah, I can relate. I get what you're saying, because I have the tendency to go very fast, which, funny enough, you know, watercolor can work really well with that. In some ways, it really rewards confidence. It rewards doing things from a place of confidence and knowing that they'll work out. And sometimes it penalizes timidness. But I think you can find a lot of courage within the constraints of, you know, very organized, slow, meticulous washes. So yeah. My name, I'm a big fan. I'm trying to watch as much videos of yours. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Pierre or Ellen, I'm not sure. I'm going to go with the username. But yeah, very interesting study, painting something available rather than trying to find a perfect landscape. Yes, that is a great point. Indeed. You bring the beauty to whatever you paint. If anything, things that are closer to you that may seem obvious make for really good references, I find, because you're familiar with them, you like them, it means something to you. So yeah, definitely. Amina, thank you so much. Yeah, I like my palette a lot. What you see there is just grays, but yeah, so it's not super interesting. Same, by the way, point that I made earlier with the yellow. Slow, deliberate washes to slowly make it a little stronger. Same with the darks. I know that if I go immediately with a very strong black, I'll lose the flow. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and the flow doesn't matter as much, admittedly, when you're doing a very dark wash that's almost black, because you won't see the patchiness of it. But I did feel like, at least for the first wash of establishing the darks, it's easier to know where to paint if you go lighter, because then you have more time, right? More reaction time. So I like to sometimes, it's almost like when you draw with a pencil. So I am painting with a very thin wash, the area that I know I'll darken. So I almost map it out with very thin lines, so that later when I come with a thicker wash and I have less reaction time, I know exactly where to paint, because I'm just doing another glaze on top of an existing wash. Does that make sense? So even though I know this entire area may end up being dark, much darker than what I'm painting it, I'll start light, because that gives me more time to really paint the shape accurately, and then I'll know exactly the shape I'm doing in a future glaze to get it darker. Pierre, yeah, I use my husband's account. Long story. Yeah, no worries. That happens quite frequently. Ellen, I'll try to remember that you're Ellen, though. My name, Liron. Do you consider before adding white gouache on the highlights part, rather than leaving it paper white on the bottle now that you are painting? Is both approaches as good as the other? Yeah. If I know I can get away with leaving all the white highlights necessary, I'll just do that. But sometimes, if the wash is so complex, and on top of that, maybe it has a lot of smooth transitions, I will probably make a decision I won't think about it, but subconsciously I'll make a decision. Now I'm just going to cover everything up and come back with the highlights, especially if the highlights are very small and very easy to find later on. It's just faster and more accurate, and it allows you to really go all out with the wash. So yeah, very often I'll make the subconscious decision to just disregard the highlights and focus on the quality of the wash, and then come back and add them on. Because you can always do that, you know? Amina, please explain why artists spray the backside of paper with water before starting to paint watercolor. I'm not sure why they spray it. Maybe it helps the paper be more glued to the desk or stick to the desk. But I do know why they pre-wet it. So if you spray it with a lot of water, when the paper is wet on both sides, you have more time to do wet and wet on the first layer. And I've done that before. I wet one area, flipped it over, wet the other area, and then painted on that, wet and wet, the first wash. It just gives you more time because the paper stays wet for longer. It's exactly like stretching the paper, where people dip it completely in water and then place it out. They let it stretch out, and it lets you do wet and wet for longer, and it prevents buckling. It does a lot of interesting things. I think that's why people do that. Now, spraying, just very lightly spraying, I don't know. I didn't see too many people do that. I want you to notice, by the way, now as I'm painting this wash on the bottle, when there's a large contrast, there's a yellow that's light and a black that's dark. Look at what happens when you add the mid value. How much context it adds, and how immediately the thing looks more realistic. It reads better. You will notice it happening in real time in this specific wash. I love this stage when you add that in between. And very often I like to darken a lot because that gives me a range. I know, okay, this is how dark this entire painting is going to be. This is the darkest it's going to be. And I do have some highlights that I painted, but then I fill in the gap in the middle, and immediately it reads like something. It gives the highlights more meaning. It gives the darks more meaning. It's so fun. It's one of the most fun stages, I think, in any section of the painting. You know? Yeah. By the way, feel free to share in the chat what you're currently working on. I'm always curious to hear. If you have any sticking points. You know, one more thing I'm curious to hear. That's actually really interesting. So how much do you feel, let's say, the situation of the market right now? Because I know the market isn't the best, right? Do you buy less art supplies, or do you spend less money on art, whatever that means? You know, courses, materials, anything, you know, classes. Do you spend less on that right now? Do you feel like the economy or whatever it is, do you feel influenced by it, so you spend less time on hobbies or things that you don't have to, basically? There's a word for that, but I forgot it, like luxury goods or whatever you want to call it. I think anything you don't need is considered a luxury good, even if it's not luxury. Correct me if I'm mistaken. But I'm curious to hear, because I do hear from people, you know, that you know, some times are tough, and people spend less money. So I'm curious to hear if you're like that. I'm super grateful because so many kind people have sent me like art supplies. I just don't need to buy anything. And I'm so basic. I use the same colors, but you know, Marjorie and John and so many kind people that have sent me stuff that I can just use them for years to come, probably. So I'm super grateful for that. Yes, Judith, what's up with that? 51 likes. No, it's fine. 50 plus likes. I already am starting to feel good about it. By the way, let's see where we are in terms of the process. So we're about, I would say, quarter through. No, don't worry. I will probably speed things up. There are some stages where we can skip, you know, so that's okay. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see which sections you'll have maybe more questions. This is a really fun part because now I'm doing the exact same thing, but only the other way. So I have the lights, now I'm adding the darks. And that's going to give some more meaning to the highlights as well. I find that very fun. Carrie, yes, I'm spending less and buying quality. Everything is so expensive. Yeah, so you do feel like things are more expensive. And obviously, I'm not in the US, I'm not in Europe, so things work a little differently here, but that's why I'm curious to hear. My name, in my country, it's easy for me to get Baohong papers. They are very affordable and very good quality. That's great, because Baohong is wonderful. Wonderful. My paper feels much less precious. Yep. Larger design. How do you add highlights on this area that already has a dark wash? Do you use watercolor crayons, dark watercolor paint? So I have a lot of ways of adding highlights. One of them is the white gel pen that I love using. This one right here. Another is I use gouache. I have pastel pencils that are great for smoother highlights because you can kind of do some pencil marks and then use a paper towel to dab it. So you get very nice, smooth transitions that I absolutely love. So yeah, there are a lot of ways. I'm really not romantic when it comes to that. I'll use just about anything. I'm not a purist of just paper white and watercolor. I couldn't care less, if I use any type of medium to bring out the highlights, really. I use watercolor too, straight out of the tube. Sujanith, yes, I spend less on art now because I realize I'm just hoarding unnecessarily. Yeah, that's a completely different story. I'm now frugal in art supplies. I already have most supplies, so I'm not buying till I finish using them. Yeah, and especially colors. They can be a real addiction. You just buy more and more. You don't need them. Looking up, I wish they made a like button visible in live chat. Oh, I think there should be one, right? I mean, there's the heart button, but then... Well, I don't know. I don't remember what... I mean, I watch a lot of live streams, but I don't remember where it is. Saras, yeah, I stopped buying brushes. I go crazy even if I don't use, but still buy the best art supplies. Funny. My name, paper is the only thing that requires constant restock. Black velvet is very affordable. Yep, that's great brushes. I used to use Cotman paints. They're a good quality too. Yeah, Cotmans are decent. Yes. I started with Cotman. I think my very first tubes were Cotman. Yes, I got just a blue, yellow, red, black, and white, I think. I don't know why I got the black and white too. Marjorie, Temu has Baohong paper for a better price. Is that a store chain? I don't know. I'm not familiar. Sujanith, General's white pastel is very bright for highlights. Interesting. Yeah, I love pastel. It's a new discovery for me. I recently discovered it. Looking up, this is a helpful format, Liron, to watch real-time video as you respond to questions. Yeah, I believe so too, and especially when it's such a long process and the live streams are around 2 hours anyway, I think it's a great opportunity. What I'm doing now is actually the easiest part. This is just like drawing. I'm adding in small details. Now, what's funny is the reason the bottle looks like that is because you can see through it to everything that's behind it. That coffee bean storage box behind the window. So once I add that, it will make the bottle look transparent. Right now, it just looks weird. So yeah. Actually, let us skip ahead just a little bit, not too much, like a couple of minutes. Yeah, okay. This is just the same, some flat washes. Yeah, I want to show you this section. This is an interesting section. I skipped just like 3 minutes out of a 2.5 hour long process, so don't worry about it. This is an interesting bit as well, where I paint the window, so I'm pre-wetting. And then I'll add color under it to get a smooth transition. You'll see this. And that color has both warm and cool. So it's a bit of an involved wash. It's one of these examples, but it's still contained in a small space, which helps a lot. But yeah. I'm going to take a sip here of my Coca-Cola Zero. Not sponsored by them, but, I barely drink, but we ordered some pizza last night, and so we have leftovers. Adria, I enjoyed the Paul Rubens cotton watercolor block. It's really textured and brings out granulations amazingly. Cool. Very cheap on Amazon, $11.99. That's a great buy then. Yeah. Okay, Chinese. Yeah. Is it a Chinese store? Baohong is great. I love it. My name, Liron. Do you think pre-wet an area to make a soft edge is better than painting an area, then use damp brush to soften? Yeah. So just like you saw me doing right now, I don't know if that's why you asked, but that's what you saw just now. Especially if it's a small area, I find it pre-wetting is easier. I think when you pre-wet, so let's say I pre-wet this area and then I put some paint that touches it, right? So the paint touches the water, and what happens is the paint moves into the water, but it moves very gently so you get a smooth transition, right? Now, if you first put the paint, then you bring in water, that paint starts to dry, and when you touch it with the water, sometimes the water can instead seep into the paint, and that will lead to some veins and uneven results. So yes, I would say for the most part, for me personally, I prefer to pre-wet, especially if it's a small area. If it's a large area, I can get away with placing the paint and then adding some water. But I find that if you add the water later, sometimes you'll get a hard edge and then you'll have to add more water and more water. I actually filmed a video on the topic. It's going to be out on Saturday, where I show you how by pre-wetting you can add soft highlights. You can create soft highlights. I think both can work, really depending on the situation. But generally speaking, I find myself very often doing it that way around. First pre-wetting a section, then adding. It was a huge discovery for me, funny enough. Oh, Robin, you found the hearts. That's cool. Thank you so much. It was a huge discovery for me when I realized I can do that, by the way. Pre-wet and then add. So yeah. So let's see where this process goes. I didn't even plan on filming it. It's one of these processes where I have to be super gentle and make sure everything is accurate. And as soon as I turn the record button on, there's something else on my mind. I want to make sure, oh, is the video running? Is it recording? Is it filming? And that small distraction can influence it. And then I try to limit how much I rotate the paper around, because that can disorient the viewer. All of these small things that may hurt the process, whereas if I paint for myself, like my head is deep into the paper like this, I'm staring at it up close, which wouldn't make for as much of an entertaining video sometimes. So it's a trade-off. So I wasn't planning, that the reason I'm saying it is I really wasn't planning on filming this. But then after I finished that first wash and you saw the starting point of the video, I thought to myself, I'm being silly. Let's just hit the record button and forget about it. Just passively record what I'm doing and paint as if I would paint any other piece of art. Just really not worry about that at all. So what happens is I get up, grab a cup of coffee. The video's still recording. I'll sit down. I'll use the hairdryer. I'll do a bunch of stuff, and I just let the video run. I'll just let it, film. So I had vast areas of the recording that had nothing in them. But that way I didn't have to think about it. And because I'm recording with OBS instead of the camera directly, the video files are quite light. So I ended up with, 6 gigabyte is around an hour and a half of recording, which is it's not a lot for an hour of video. I think if I would film this directly with the camera, an hour would be more than that, like 12 even, with double. But yeah, Laura, good morning, evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Sujani, this single brush is like a sword in a warrior's hand. It's doing so many nuances. It's beautiful. Yeah, and it's also thanks to Escoda. The quality is good. The edge is relatively kept. So definitely can thank them. It has lost just a bit of its edge, admittedly, but nothing, too bad. I'm sorry, just had to check something here. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, this brush can do a lot. And I painted pretty much the whole thing with this. I did use later on this brush, which I love too for larger washes, the Soft Aqua by Raphael. This is size 40. 40 millimeters, 1.5 inch. I find this to be really good for big areas where you are worried you won't get a smooth wash. I painted Divination, a large painting with a lot of it was painted with this brush. A lot of it. Large parts of it. So now, after I finished painting the very initial wash of that coffee bean storage box, I am connecting it to the other shadows on the marble surface. The reason I'm doing that is why not? You know, I'm there. It's going to be a part of the wash. So why not connect the two? Now, all of the patchiness you see, you know, due to me not working fast enough and all blah, blah, blah. The reason I'm blending, by the way, is I don't want to stretch it all the way to the left. But the patchiness and all of that you're seeing there, that is fine. It's going to have zero repercussions later on because this is just the first wash of, I don't know, 4 or 5 washes that I do on that section. So yeah. Now I'm painting some patches of the sky that are visible in the window through... is it a sky or a building? I think it's a building, not the sky, my bad. That are visible through the window. As I mentioned, complex wash into a simpler one. That's how I like to keep it varied. That's the way I enjoy painting. It keeps me focused and entertained. Now, of course, I took a lot of breaks in between this process, but it did span 2 days only. I started it one day, finished it the next. So even a painting like this, as long as it's not too huge, doesn't take that long. You know, if this was double the size, this is A3 size approximately. If this was, I don't know, A2, I guess it's double A3, it would have easily taken at least 1 or 2 more days, easily. I almost find that I'm going to skip that because you don't even see it. I find that the painting process's time increase exponentially sometimes. It's funny. If you make it double the size, it takes 3 times the time to finish. Sometimes that can happen. I want to show you this because this is interesting. Look at how the bottle of oil truly reflects, and I'm going to zoom in a bit, sorry about that, what's behind it. See this? Those dark lines? This really reflects, and then I'm going to smoothen the edge. It really, not reflects, but it lets you see through it. That's a huge part of what makes it look transparent, you know? So it's one of those things. Small details that add a lot. When you look at them, you better read the reference. It's significantly easier to read the reference, to read the painting. This is a great wash, by the way. We're going to look at this one in detail. Let's see if I can expand it to show some of the palette as well. I'm not sure. We'll try. I'm a little zoomed in here. Yeah, you don't see much of the palette anyway. That's fine. I am trying to make the most out of this wash, so you'll see me constantly adding darker and darker paint. Constantly. Marjorie, can you talk about usefulness of a viewfinder? To be honest with you, in the last couple of paintings, when I say couple, I mean like 5, 6, and I've done some really accurate paintings. You saw the one with the, let me tell you something, the 2 guys on the next to the fountain thing. Same for the cactus. I have not been using a viewfinder as much. I have the image opened in Photoshop, and I sample the color to see if I'm headed in the right direction. Now I'm going to switch to a red, nice little warmer color for that section. It's a small nuance, but it does show. So yeah, that's usually how I have done it in recent processes. I'm opening it in Photoshop, and I am simply sampling the color itself. I'm looking at the exact color. I see if I can mix something close enough, and then I paint that. Values, I'm good enough, like I can tell the value, so I don't use as much black and white references. Only near the end of the painting, I'll open up a black and white reference just to see if the overall composition works, usually. Now I'm mixing very thick paint because I have to combat the wetness on paper. One thing I started doing a lot, and I may talk about in a video soon, I'm dabbing a lot of the brush on a paper towel, and then I'm dipping it again in paint, and then I'm doing wet and wet. I find that if I can absorb even more water out of it and then dip it again in paint, I can get color that really stays there, like you see here. This is going to stay there really nicely. So yeah. Liron, my name, Liron, do you plan on having a full painting analysis for the cactus painting? So here's the thing with the cactus, not anything in additional to the video I already posted that you might have seen. I covered the stages because I didn't film it in video, unfortunately. I don't have its stages. I don't have video stages of it. I just have a few snapshots of the process that I did show and discuss. I think I did a video on that, right? I'm pretty sure I did one. A relatively recent one. Let's see. Or did I not? Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm going senile. I was sure I showed the stages. Was it maybe during a live stream? Maybe not. Maybe I did not show the stages. I don't know. I do have like 6 pics of the process, so in theory, I could show you them. But yeah, I didn't film it in video, unfortunately. What other process did I film recently? Nothing that pops to mind. I do plan on filming some more of the complex processes soon. Now what I'm doing is basically the same thing. I'm gonna run through this real fast because it's just more of the same. I'm doing another wash. The takeaway here is you'll see later on I do a wash that's way too cool. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, so you see this wet and wet? This is kind of very thick paint on the brush so that it doesn't create blooms and lose its shape when it hits the paper. So I'd say that's the biggest takeaway from there, but yeah, nothing too interesting. Now I'm switching to that brush I mentioned earlier, the Raphael Aqua. What is it called? Soft Aqua. Because I really need some flow there. In the back, very thin wash to make sure, you know, that I have enough time, because this is a complex one. You'll see. There's quite a lot of painting around shapes and within shapes. It can be a challenge. Some would flip the page, and I will do it later on for another wash for the background. They'll say it's better to start with the complex shapes and end on the faster ones. I alternate. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that. But notice how this gives more context to the sky, to the blue buildings from behind the wall. It just starts to tell a more accurate story. So Janith, thanks a lot for this live stream. Wish speedy and painless recovery. Thank you so much. My physiotherapist today said I'm making really fast progress. He says I'm progressing much faster than the average. And hopefully it makes sense because I'm doing a lot of physiotherapy every day religiously. A lot of, I still have pain on the patella itself, especially when I bend the leg. When I do, it's not even a squat, it's just a mini bend. One of the exercises they gave me. That's the only real pain I have. If I just rest or, stuff like that, I'm okay. When I walk, there's a bit of weakness. I limp very gently. It's almost back to normal. Almost. Buck, your painting process seems more like what my natural process should be. I'm getting too hung up on mimicking someone else's technique rather than focusing on what is happening on my own paper. Yeah, that's another great point. At the end of the day, the most fun and joyous thing, it really is to get lost and find a way on your own. It really is. There's no way around it. It's almost like, how sometimes you kind of know where a place is? Let's say you're walking somewhere, not even driving the car, you're just walking somewhere, and you kind of know where it is, and you know that you can guesstimate the general direction. Maybe you'll add a bit of a walking distance because you won't do it in the most effective way. But sometimes you are tempted to open Google Maps, just set the location and navigate with it and do the exact same thing it tells you. But if you really know where it is and you kind of navigate there, it feels good. It feels good to just get there on your own. Very similar to the painting process. If instead of opening a map, so to speak, you just kind of get lost and find your own way, I think it's that thing that makes the painting your own, makes the process your own. And at the end of the day, it's very hard being someone else. It takes so much effort. And what you're seeing here does not take effort. What I'm painting right now, I have zero effort involved, really. I'm just enjoying the process and just doing it. I'm not even enjoying it as much as I'm just peaceful. I'm just there. I would say that's... If you're looking for freedom and joy in your painting process, that would be the path. Let's just say that. And yeah, I do that all the time. I'll open up a map, even though I know the general direction. I know it's somewhere in that direction. So yeah, I need to turn right and then left and right again. But I'll find it if I just go for it. It's so funny. Marjorie, I used to use a viewfinder to focus on a part of what I was looking at in landscapes, but then used it for interiors. It helped my composition. interiors can be so much harder, and for that I definitely see, or even a still life arrangement that is inside, um, can be so challenging to see all the nuances and values, especially because everything is similar, right? You have so many different darks and so many different browns and grays, that yeah, viewfinder can really help. And I know a lot of oil painters who use it because they kind of have to. They're mixing and they're constantly mixing and then placing and mixing and placing. It's very different from watercolor, where you can fix a lot of things, wet and wet. Let me move this so you'll see what's going on there. Yeah, this is another section. Not too fascinating, just going back over some details. Now I'm gonna darken this a little more. Why not? Let's look at this here. But now I'm not going over everything. Now I'm just going after the darkest darks, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see. Yeah, Bak, that's exactly what everyone is looking for. I think it kind of clicked for me in the last 2 years, I would say. I really understood what it means, and it made pretty much all my painting processes so much more rewarding. It's fine if you're not there yet. It's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with anything. Everyone goes through their own kind of journey to find that thing. But I believe you'll find it. One good way is to just take your own photo, just a photo of something you like, and try and paint it. Just go for it a few times. You won't paint it like others do. You'll paint it the way you know to paint it, and congruent with where you are right now in your painting, which may be, very limited use of technique, a very playing it safe. You can play it safe with watercolor and not do as much wet and wet, not do as much smooth transitions. You can paint just about anything with sharp transitions. I don't have to smoothen out any edge. I can just interpret things as hard edges everywhere, and it will make the process a little more forgiving, So yeah. Now look at this highlight to the left that I'm leaving. I wouldn't even call it a highlight. It's a mid-value. This is going to look really good later on. You'll see it's one super nice reflection, But yeah, this process is fun. I mean, it's fun to just look back at it. I learn a lot from looking at myself paint, Sometimes I underestimate just how much it helps. Mark, how are you, my friend? What's up, Liron? Full-on heavy metal painting. I'm trying to get away from being too realistic. Not that my stuff is, I'm just more interested in painting loose and reduce the number of brush strokes. Yeah, that's a fun way of doing it, and you can really let loose. I've done so many tight paintings. Next one's probably going to be looser and more wild. Because, after painting something like the Fabergé egg, I mean, look at this thing. It's crazy. Painting these gemstones individually. And then also, I'm just doing something like this. The painting that's on auction. Something looser, fun, rewarding, lots of colors. I mean, look at that. That's one of my favorites in recent time, when it comes especially to the colors I'm using. But yeah, Mark, go for it. Yeah, I think I saw a recent comment of yours. I don't remember where it was, but it was really nice, so thank you. My name, Liron. Sometimes by painting too much layers and it covers the pencil lines, makes me hard to know which area I need to paint based on my sketch. Any advice? Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to that, working in thin layers can help, because every time you narrow down your shapes, you start with a larger shape that represents a light value, and then you slowly narrow it down. Even in this process, if you'll notice, even where I went really dark there, where the vinegar is inside the oil, I set it up with a very thin wash, and then I'm just going over it. Now, I did know to leave some highlights within it. How did I know that? Well, a big part of painting, if you think about the coffee cup painting I did with no pencil lines, a big part of it is learning to stay connected with your vision and the reference photo, regardless of what you already have on paper. It's a bit of a nuanced point, but I'll try and explain it anyway. So think about it this way. What you have on paper is what you have on paper. But your vision when you look at the reference photo or the subject matter it's your vision. It's still there. You can look at the photo and paint over what you have and almost navigate throughout the painting, not based on a sketch you did, but based on your understanding of the reference. So by looking at the reference, I can know, oh, here I need some highlights. Here I need some details. The pencil lines are more of a structure to set up the first couple of washes. But after I got the first couple of washes in, guess what my pencil lines are? The first washes. The first washes become my pencil lines, my scaffolding on which I base the next details. So it's almost like I see no separation between pencil lines and paint. It's all just preparation for the next step. The preparation for the first wash is the pencil lines. Wherever, if the first wash is split, same thing. The preparation is the pencil lines. The preparation for the second wash is both the pencil lines and the first wash. The preparation for the third wash is both the pencil line, both the first wash, and the second wash. See what I mean? So that's how I like to build it. It will come with some experience. Not too much, though. Pretty simple. But I get it. I had that happen to me many times before. Now, if you jump straight to the darks, you may lose some pencil lines that you will never find back, and then you'll find yourself navigating a lot of details that you need to realize where to place just based on looking at the reference photo. That can be tough. That can be tough. So sometimes that happens, especially if you're in too much a hurry in the beginning. I had that happen many times, actually. Mark, that mountain village painting is glorious, but I'm still trying to loosen up more. I look forward to your wild style loose stuff when it lands. Yeah, definitely. You know, whenever I paint loose, after I finish the painting, I'm like, I can go looser. Because if I just grab a random piece of paper and just go crazy on that, I'll be looser than I would in a painting. It always happens to me. It's so funny that it happens. You think, oh, I'm loose, and then you find, no, I could be much, much looser. Now, I'm going to skip this wash, because basically the takeaway is I went too blue. This is too cold. I'm going to fix it hurriedly with another wash immediately afterwards. Look at the surface and that container. The container is way too blue. The blue is really sticking out like a sore thumb. I had to immediately get rid of it with another wash that's warmer. Sometimes that can happen. And off we go to one of the most important washes, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to start establishing some darks here. Let's do this. And yeah, we're good. We're good. So yeah, we'll probably look at this stage, and then I'll see if there's anything really interesting a couple of minutes later on. But now you'll see how the volume starts getting there, right? And I'm happy I could help my name. Now the volume will start appearing there. Take a sip. Marjorie, I used to think that it was the paint's fault when I was glazing, and yes, that was some of the problem, but maybe more importantly was the paper. On Arch, all the paints accept and lift less. Interesting. Yeah, it could be the paper. It could be a bit of the paints too, but usually it is the paper. You're correct. There is something very satisfying. By the way, look at how I edit the edges. I'm softening them, and I can do that because I'm starting small. Even though the wash is darker, I'm still starting small. Marjorie, yeah, there's a lot of satisfaction in painting the final color directly, meaning no glazes. Now, not all paintings will, and all processes and all moods you're in will allow you to even do that. But those that do, I find it fun to choose one section and just go as dark as necessary, you know? So you can mix a very juicy, like a blue or a neutral blue, and just look at the final color like you would with a viewfinder and just get that in one go. If that area is small, it can be even easier to do. And then you don't have to think about glazes. Just, you know, doing it. L'art, the design, clever way to look at it. The pencil lines are the first wash. Yeah, definitely. I see this as one holistic process for sure. You know, yep, for sure. The separation is very minimal. And I would always prefer to have the ability. I know some people work differently, and that's fine. But I would always prefer to have the ability to navigate my way through a painting in theory without having any pencil lines, if I can. Now, for something as complex as this, it's hard. It's very hard. You'll have to do some kind of sketch, whether it's pencil or, you know, with watercolor itself. But yeah. See how I'm taking my time? I'm really taking my time with this wash. Because it's not an easy one. It's going to establish a lot of the details. This is a good chance to remind you that I am auctioning this painting. Let me see if I can share it above this. Yeah, there we go. The auction's gonna end in basically tomorrow, 8 hours later than right now. If you want to place a bid, now's your opportunity. Thank you so much. I'm super happy, even if it sells for those 70 USD. Super grateful for that. Thank you to everyone who placed the bids. I can see you. I won't mention because I don't think people want to be mentioned, but I haven't seen you on the live stream, any of you, by the way. So I don't know if you're even here. But yeah, I can see them and I'm super duper grateful. They're almost all by different people, so we may have a bidding war. Who knows? But thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. And I do know a lot of people. The market's rough. I feel it for sure. I feel the decline. So I'm very grateful for every purchase and every sale I make for the courses and for everything. So let's see here. Is this just nothing going on because I'm mixing off camera? Yeah, okay, there we go. Let's see where this particular section leads. Yeah. So I'm going basically over the same areas, but this time darker. Now, I know it looks very dark, but even the darks I put just a second ago, look at what happens as soon as they lighten it up, right? And by the way, feel free to ask me any questions, again, if you have, regardless of this process. You know, everything you want to know, everything you're wondering about, I'm here for you. You don't have to just ask relating to this process. And I see most questions were just general, so feel free to. So yeah, covering it, just leaving the highlights behind. Continuing here, I'm going to leave a nice highlight to show where the screw is for this handle. This is so fun because if you have some kind of, you know, an appliance or some kind of an object at home that you see every single day, you'd be surprised how fun it is to paint it. And you'll gain a new appreciation for it because you will know it as the back of your hand, as they say, or the inside of your hand or your palm. I don't remember how the saying goes. You will know it to the T. You'll never look at it the same way. Whenever you'll use it to, you know, to pour some tea or whatever it is, you will recognize so many nuances you haven't before, and that's great fun. Oh, wait, sorry, I missed a few. Mark, I just discovered artist Dean Mitchell. Oh, Dean Mitchell is amazing. I was totally amazed by what I saw. He combines the realism with abstract. In the detail, when you zoom in, he transmits such emotion. So wait, did you see Dean Mitchell paint over on YouTube? Because I haven't seen processes by Dean Mitchell. Oh, here's a nice one. It was published 11 months ago. Okay, I'll look into that. I did a painting masters on Dean Mitchell. He is fantastic, fantastic, and he uses just about any medium. You know, watercolor, oils, acrylics, just chef's kiss. He combines the realism with abstract in the detail. When you zoom in, he transmits such emotion. Yes, it's great. And his colors are so nuanced, you know, most of them aren't too bright and it works. It looks great. Art to design. I understand the disconnection created by having to film your drawing or painting process. I struggle with making sure my head does not show under the top camera as well. Yeah, that's the thing. So the only way for me to film a process like this and maintain the artistic integrity of what I was going to do, meaning if the camera was off, I would have done the exact same thing. The only way for me to do it is to not worry about showing my head, the top of my head in the camera. I just force myself to... I don't force myself, I just do it. I just paint as if no one's looking, dance as if no one's looking. That's the only way for me to do such a thing. Because if I start thinking about it, and, you know, I'm at a point where... You know, I'm quite lucky and I would say in a good spot because, you know, I have so many videos out there that I can afford to have more raw footage style. If someone's starting out on YouTube and they really want to convey something, it can be harder. Here's another beautiful complex wash. But yeah, the only way to maintain that integrity is to allow myself to show my top of my head and all of that. because that's how I would paint, you know, that I have to do it. Now, if I really want a polished video, yeah, I'll try and avoid that, but it will influence the result, you know. And this is a painting I had big plans for. I hope to sell it in a future auction too, so I had to make sure I don't lose what I got here, you know. Sometimes if a painting means a lot to you, you do better filming it, because the painting will take priority over filming. Marjorie, have you tried using watercolor pencil for your sketch? If done lightly with usually a light tan, it helps the sketch disappear. Interesting. I haven't, and I should. There is no reason why I shouldn't. I also see some people do it, you know, while the paint is wet. They just add pencil lines, and it looks like it can add some great options to the process. So no reason for me not to do it. Just silly that I haven't, and hopefully I will. Man, my hair is long. Really long. Marjorie, okay, we answered that. My name is Liron. Have you thought of submitting any paintings for AWS watercolor exhibition? Is there one upcoming? I'm so bad at these things. Watercolor competition 2023. Let's see if submissions are open. Yeah, it was held. Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll do for the next one. I'm so bad at these things. I'm so not on top of these things. I'm so in my insular bubble. I should probably take more part in it. One thing I'm trying to do is, and this is in continuation, by the way, look at this part of the wash. I love it. I love it. Look at how these two areas connect. And there aren't going to be too many cauliflowers because the paint on the right is stronger than the paint on the left. It's a little darker. We talked about this. I talked about it with Janine Galizia. I'm trying to bring watercolor outside the watercolor world, and I find that a lot of the different watercolor communities are still quite insular within the watercolor world. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but I would love, and this is something I talked about a long time ago, I'd love to increase watercolor's prestige as a medium outside the small insular community of watercolor painters, collectors, and so on. So these competitions, I mean, they're great, right? I'm just saying from a standpoint of expanding watercolor, they don't do much, I think. It's more for the people inside the community, which again is great. But yeah, I'm always thinking, how can I bring more people into watercolor as opposed to just provide for the existing community? And I think this is why I didn't put a lot of emphasis on these kinds of events. I did take part in an event here in Israel of the IWS, Israeli Watercolor Society, which was great. I did participate in some events in Bulgaria, I believe. My painting was shown there. But for the most part, it's been years since I really thought about it, you know. And I should be up to date on these things. It's a good way to get exposure within the world of watercolor. Probably to sell some paintings too, you know. Yeah, I should do more of that for sure. I had another note regarding this section of the process, and I forgot it, but I'll remember it in a few seconds. And by the way, I did put a banner down below if you want to paint more convincing watercolors, more realistic watercolors. Be sure to check out the Watercolor Realism course. It is down below. You can find a link. I highly recommend you check it out because if you're after this kind of a process where you're really getting things to look accurate, it's the perfect way to go. And I think the ratio is 1 to 10, meaning out of 10 people who joined the frustration-free watercolor course, maybe 1 joined the Watercolor Realism course. So there's a lot of potential there for me and for you. So check it out if you haven't. It goes in depth on values, shapes, edges, and I think it's a very useful process to follow. Once you get it and you know how realism works, you can apply it to just about any painting. You'll get a realistic result every single time if you follow that process. So I highly recommend you check it out. It's cheaper than a frustration-free watercolor course by, I don't know, $5 something, like it's $24. So check it out. There are some portraits there. There are some clouds. There are some cityscapes. There's a bit of everything. I think you'll love it. Let's see here. Mark, the saying is to know something like the back of your hand. Okay, yeah, I wonder why the back, because I mean, the back part is less interesting, I think, than the front part. Am I wrong? I don't know. I'm not sure. Tuta Art. I would love to see you paint blurred objects where they are not in focus. I find it difficult. Yes, I find it difficult too. And whenever someone gets that effect perfectly down, I am very impressed. But yeah, I'll try showing more of that. Sure. These are just flat washes. So check out my car out of a window pane video. I showed it live. I painted a car live where the windows, everything is blurry, and the window has some raindrops on it. Looks really, it has that effect. But yeah, I should do more of that for sure. Now let me orient us in the process. Okay, some more flat washes. I want to see. Yeah, okay. This is an interesting wash, and then I'm gonna flip it over, and you'll see. I want to make sure, because not everyone can sit through a 3-hour live stream as well, so I want to make sure we get through the entire process. Mark, I do like this painting of items in the kitchen and on the stove. As you say, there is so much inspiration right in front of us every day. I have done a few fun sketches of oil bottles, paint tubes, etc. Yeah, paint tubes are great as well. I love them. I will say, yeah, you know, I always take photos. Whenever I see something interesting, I'll take a photo. The reason is I could always, and look at this, I'm adding dark next to the light, and it will look great. This is actually a kitchen scale. It's a little hard to see in the reference to, even if I would show it to you. There's a kitchen scale there, and it's the shadow that it casts, and I think it looks great. Yeah, so I wanted to say, always take pictures. Like, have a stock, because I'm low on pictures right now. I need more references for paintings that are truly my own, paintings I plan on selling. I need photos that are my own, if only for copyright reasons, but also because it leads to the most unique paintings possible. So for sure, now I'm doing something dangerous. I'm splitting my efforts, but hopefully it will still work. I'm using relatively wet paint, not wet enough, but I think it will work out if I remember correctly, because there are so many small shapes to paint around carefully. But yeah, that is, it's crucial to me. I always try and take pictures. Hopefully the next time we're at a restaurant, I'll take some interior pictures, because I want to do more interiors. I find that they bring out something interesting that's relevant to my own style in particular. I don't know why, it just happens. And people love them, seems like, in the auction that I'm running right now. Not this one, not the auction I just showed you, another auction, locally. My name, Tuta Ardor, is a painting of a car. I would say yes, exactly. That's the one. My name, you are super knowledgeable. Thank you so much. Let me see if I can find it. Liron, Watercolor live car. I think I'll be able to find it. But actually, I can find a video that's an abridged version. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is just the process without all the fluff from that live stream. Let me make sure it's the one. I'll send it in the chat, no worries. Yeah, that's the closest I got. It's not perfect, but it actually shows the exact effect. Car, rain, out of focus. Out of focus effect. I think that will be perfect for what you're looking for. Mark, that's a very interesting idea, to try and bust into the non-watercolor medium world. I don't know why there should be so stuck in a bubble. It might be to do the influence and control of art dealers. Yeah, you know, it's so funny. Okay, so I'll tell you the story. I'm auctioning against some of my paintings via a local auction house. They've been super kind, super nice, and great, and the paintings will sell, and it's great. They directed me exactly like they should. It's been a great experience, but they did mention to me that watercolors are at the bottom of the tier when it comes to pricing. Even charcoal and sketches are higher on the tier. It's watercolor, charcoal, sketches, acrylics, and oils, I guess. And I don't mind that, because it's an auction. The audience will dictate what will happen, but the initial prices were relatively low, and they mentioned, and it makes a lot of sense to me. If an oil is priced at a similar price to my watercolor, I have to take into consideration the oil took probably 3 times, 4 times, maybe even more longer to paint. Watercolor is relatively fast. So I don't think in terms of prestige it should be lower on the rank, but it is a faster process. So if you just think about it in terms of time spent, yes, it's a little different. But I wholeheartedly agree. I think watercolor painting should have as high prestige as any other medium. These days especially, it's just the same thing, just a different process. So yeah, I think it's more about judging the painting on the merit of its artistic qualities. So yeah, I completely agree. We're preaching here. That car painting is lovely. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you so much. Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to get watercolor in front of more eyes of people who don't know how much they'd enjoy watercolor. I bet you there are plenty of art collectors out there who just have no idea. They collect what they're used to. They collect what their dealer, the person, that guides them, tells them to collect. And they just don't know. They would love some watercolors. So yeah, you have to accept the situation and know what you're working with, and then do your best to whatever it is you want to achieve, There's no point in dwelling on it, that's for sure. So I'm not dwelling on it at all. I'm just working my way on changing some things that I want to change, Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, Mark. Yep. Hey, Scott, no worries. Yeah, welcome. Welcome aboard. I have been going through the process and showing, the stages and talking about it, and just pretty much, answering random questions about art, watercolor, whatever it is. Feel free to ask yours. I have a bottle of water here that I'm drinking off sporadically. And then I have Coke Zero Coke. I don't know what you'd call that. Not the healthiest, but it's good energy-wise while I'm streaming. Found myself, when I was sick and I lost a lot of electrolytes, found myself drinking Gatorade. like a fool. I don't know. I never drink energy drinks. It's, I don't drink only healthy stuff. I don't drink just water, but I barely drink any energy drinks, I don't think. At least not to get energy. I call them what they are. It's just a sweet drink. Oh, by the way, here I am covering this area that wasn't paper white, by the way. It had a wash on it, but I felt like it needed more color. And look at how, and I'll actually rewind here a bit, just for a second, if you'll forgive me. Look at the before, how pale and detached it looks. And look at how as soon as I put that yellow in, warm, it's not a super clean yellow, it will put a lot of things in the right context, including the red above it, the shadows on the marble, the yellow to the right, the blue to the left, that you see there, the reflection. All of it just connects much better. It's these small mid-value, light value, everything in between the lightest light and the darkest dark, and it really brings the painting together. I love that. That will probably require me to darken the reflection on the kettle. You see the reflection there on the kettle? That will probably be darker as well. Same for that part on the left. And I'm doing another glaze, trying to straighten out that edge on the mortar. Is that the thing you call it? With which I actually made pesto a couple of times, by the way. Anne Morgan. Yes, but it took 20 to 30 years to get to a point that you can paint quickly. I agree. Yeah, I don't think work should be priced only based on time, of course. And, the art world bases things pretty much on whatever. Random provenance of the art piece, the name of the artist, how popular they are, how trendy they are. For sure. I think there are a lot of factors involved, and I think time could be another factor. I'll tell you the truth. If someone took months to complete a painting, yes, I think they should price that in. So if you compare it to another painting of similar quality, yes, it should cost maybe more. But if that artist that their painting took half the time to make has much more fame and much more, the paintings are more expensive, they're more of an investment vehicle, for sure, they should be more expensive. So it's always, or not should, but they could end up being more expensive. So yeah, the art world is strange. It's all about brand. It's all about, you know, your name as an artist. I think there's a lot of people who can succeed, have a decent level of success that you can make a living off of and live a decent life and not be one of these crazy top tier super famous artists. And that is fine, you know. There is a lot of in between, because most people can't afford a painting that costs millions, not to mention tens of thousands of dollars as a luxury good again. So that tier of hundreds of dollars, whatever, thousands of dollars, under $100, they all find their audience and place. Yeah. My name, Liron. I feel Qiantung Wei's watercolor painting looks so much like an oil painting. His approach is so unique. Yes, he utilizes a lot of opaque paints in his large washes. He'll use a lot of like the John Brilliant that I use mostly for highlights. He'll use really for pretty much everything. By the way, look at how much darkening the marble and the surface helps to bring out the highlights. That's a biggie here. So yeah, Qiantung Wei, the way he mixes his colors is completely different to what most other artists do. He also works, he somehow manages to paint very large washes with varying colors in one go. So I'm not sure what it is, but he really has a technical mastery of the medium. Yep. That's a person I would watch if I'm, by the way, going back to the point from before. I forgot who asked it, but I remember, and then I forgot about, you know, struggling with a specific subject. That's one way of neutralizing it. I think it was Kyra. Yeah, Kyra. If you look at someone like that has very strong technical skills as well, maybe it'll give you a few insights on how to tackle a specific subject. Let's see. Scott, I'll watch the stream again, make a video on watercolor process again. Do you want me to post this as just the process? Because I may do that, yes. Mark, maybe you could go on TV to present a paint log to promote watercolor. Yeah, you know, that could be interesting. But TV, I feel like, you know, people watch YouTube on TV now. So TV, satellite TV or cable TV, it's not what it used to be anyway. Now I'm going to merge it probably with the left area, or maybe I'll blend it. I don't remember. Well, look at how the reflection of the mortar looks really good. You see the warmth next to the blue. Right under the oil bottle. That's really important. Oh yeah, I'm merging with a big brush. And later on, I'll push this to be much darker. Now we have a few flatter washes. I think we can go ahead, move a little forward in the process. Darkening more details on that bottle. Here's another interesting wash. Now we can continue where I kind of paused. Now I'm merging with the wash that is actually me taking the photo, almost like a selfie. Unfortunately, one of the more interesting washes I didn't film, but that's fine. I had to have that freedom to stop the video once in a while so that I know I can work freely. My name, Liron. I felt another reason people appreciate oil painting is because of how detailed and realistic it can be painted. People tend to relate realism and detailed mimicking is good art. So here's my counterpoint to that. I agree. Oils can be, you know, super detailed and realistic. The thing is, watercolors can also. If you look at someone like Thierry Duval, his watercolors are so detailed. Now, if you look at something like this painting even, it's pretty close to the details of a lot of oils. Now, here's the difference. With oil painting, you see a lot of individual brush marks. So it could lead you to think that they're more detailed than a watercolor. But sometimes two paintings that are equal amount of details, the oil one will look more detailed. This is just a point for thought. I just think oils, because it's not water, it has more prestige. It's a material. It stays on top of the paper surface or the canvas surface or wood surface, whatever it is. It's just historically speaking. The only way to combat this is to make so much insanely good watercolor art. That's the only way that looks just wonderful, detailed, or loose, doesn't matter. But detail does play a role into that, I think. Very realistic to the whole spectrum. And I think it may equal out at some point. Not fully equal, but it may be closer to even in the future. Tambo Artwork, how are you doing? I'm retired. I take my time and only paint for pure enjoyment. That's the best way to do it, honestly. The best way to do it. If you don't need to make money or sell paintings or make money from your paintings, it's the best way. Mark, what you just said about the mid value is gold. Excuse the pun. Yep, indeed. This was a golden mid value. Yes, sometimes the small touch of the wash. Look at what I'm doing here. I'm adding darks under the kettle just because I can merge it with the existing wash. I don't even remember if I continue this wash down or let it dry. I think, yeah, I'm continuing it very gently, but I just wanted, or maybe I'm not sure, but I just wanted to have that smooth transition near the bottom of the kettle. Whether I continue it or not, sometimes I'll do that. Because don't forget, a dark wash, you won't see any unevenness if you paint light next to it. It's a good trick. Scott, leaving white spaces on paper is difficult for me. Yeah, that makes sense. And if you're really struggling painting negatively, just paint over the white spaces and later on come back with opaque paint. You can do all of that there. Doesn't really matter. Let's see here. Now I'll probably start... I'm smoothing out the edges there, you see? Because it's a rounded transition, the marble surface. I don't know what you'd call that, the kitchen's marble. I'm not even sure there's we call it shaish in Hebrew. So I don't know what it's like in English. I know the material is marble. Let me know. It's one of those things I never know. And as I continue this wash, yeah, it's done. It was too, it's already dried, so I couldn't start doing wet and wet. I'll do wet and wet later on. But look at how I'm adding yet again a darker wash, because I keep darkening very gradually, and I'm gonna continue with this same as I done before. I'm gonna start darkening some of the lighter sections that are also still darker. I'm running through a lot of this because this is getting a little more interesting. Zoom in a bit. And yeah, we are 3/4 done with the process. We'll get it till the end. And if you're tired or you have to go somewhere or do something, feel free to dip out and watch the rest later or not. It's okay. But yeah, you will have the entire process. It's a good opportunity. Again, if you haven't seen, I shared this one on Instagram, the Fabergé egg that I painted. This is a bit of an insane one. Oh, by the way, I was telling the story of how I got to paint it. So I've been watching, I was injured, laying on the sofa most of the day, doing physiotherapy. So I've started watching Peaky Blinders for the first time. And I think I'm in season 4, maybe the first episode, or the end of season 3. Somewhere around there. Beginning of season 4, I think. And there was an episode showing a Fabergé egg, and I remember that they exist. So I went online, I looked for all of them, started reading about some of the oligarchs that own some of them. Was an interesting read. But then I saw the mosaic one, and I was like, interesting. Maybe I'll paint that. And I ended up painting it because of that. By the way, I really enjoy Peaky Blinders. But now that I'm back to work and routine, the pace at which I watch it is gonna massively decrease. Since I got back to work, I didn't watch any episodes, pretty much nothing. But I've finished a season in like 2 days when I was injured. So that's how it is. Now I'm gonna get stuck on season 4 for months, probably. I have so many TV shows I started, haven't finished. Now, there is a hard transition there that later on I'll smoothen out, but that's going to be for later on. On the kettle itself, you can see it. Let's zoom out a bit here. I want to show you some more details. Completely bumped the camera there. Let's skip ahead a bit. I want to see... Yeah, okay, so I'm doing yet another glaze on top of that, and I'm connecting it to the desk. So a part of, and I called that video the reality of realistic watercolors. A big part of that reality is multiple glazes. More and more and more glazes, one on top of the other. Slowly pushing the color to be what you want it to be. slowly pushing the value to be what you want it to be. That's almost a price you pay for getting more details in and more accuracy, which is fine. It's fine. Added this reflection of the bottle to make it darker. Paid guy 1125. How can you add colors which are not there while still not making them look odd? So first off, even if you add a color that's not there, it doesn't necessarily look odd. Now, the way I usually like to do it is instead of adding a hue, like an actual color that isn't there. So a hue is, you know, all kinds of purples, all kind of blues, all of these are different hues. Instead of adding a color that's not there, I'll exaggerate a color that is there. So I'll make a certain red or certain blue more vibrant than it actually is. That's how I like to do it personally. I cannot comment too much on changing the colors, but I will say that I like exaggerating them. Now, I will change them here and there, not just exaggerate, but I do it, I guess, gently. Now, one way to do it is, okay, let's say that there is no purple in this painting. Okay, there is a bit of it, but let's say there's no purple. The way I would add purple in a way that will look natural is by using the same blue and red that I've been using throughout the painting to mix the purple. So then you end up with a purple that feels natural to the scene. And this is why I personally like doing a limited palette, because I find it makes it easier to keep things in harmony. So even though there's maybe no purple in the reference photo, I'm adding my own purple by mixing my own purple from the same blues and reds that I have already used throughout the painting. Same goes for any other color, you know. The yellows, the greens have been mixed with the yellows and blues that are the same that I use in the rest of the painting. And that's how I personally do that. Even most of the grays that I mix with neutral tint, I feed them with a bit of my blues and my reds to make it more of my own. That's how I usually approach that. L'art design. Thierry Duval's canvas are also huge, and it takes hundreds of hours. And like you, he's very generous in answering questions. Tell me, how do you know you are done with a painting? Yeah, you know, Thierry, I remember discovering him on Instagram a couple of years ago. It must have been at least 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And I was looking at his posts, and he replies to everyone. He's super kind. He's one of the kindest people out there. He really just... he doesn't post a lot of videos from what I've seen, but he responds to every comment, which is incredible. So yeah, I really appreciate what he does. I did a painting masters, of course, on him. Here's where I push the shadow underneath to be dark. I'm going to switch to a larger brush in a second. But yeah, as for your question of when I'm done with a painting, I'll take like a 2-3 minute break. I'll place it I'll look at it from afar, and if it feels like it could be complete, usually it is complete. If I feel like something is missing, usually something is missing. But the moment it could be complete, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I could stop now. I feel free to stop. Even if there are more details that could be added, you know, if I really stop and think about it, this detail and that detail is not there and blah, 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 blah. You could play that game. But for me, if it feels like it's done, I just wrap it up. Now, you can't really go wrong if you add the details you see there. You'll just end up with a more detailed painting. If you're doing it in a relatively accurate manner that is following your vision too, you can't really add too many details. But if the painting tells the story, I'm done. I'll give you an example here. There are more details in the marble itself. There's some texture on it that I could paint with very light, small shapes. But then I ask myself, will it enhance the painting, or does it feel final now? And if it feels final, I'm done. You know, I'm just, that's it. That's it. You know? So yeah, that's how I do it. If there's a chance that it's a yes, meaning it's done, it's done. I don't overthink these things. A lot of my paintings arguably I could have spent another hour on and add some more stuff to it, but I don't see the need to usually, so I don't. So yeah. And by the way, I love the way you phrase the question. It is a knowing. I just know that it's done. If I doubt it, I'm like, no, there are some things I want to add. I'll just add them in. But I usually know when it's done. Gina, hey, good morning. Thank you for being here. No worries for being late. L'art to design countertop, I think. Yeah, makes sense. Countertop. Yep. It's just a marble-made countertop, yes. The green highlight on the left on the kettle is really standing out now. Yeah, that's the more you add the darks, the highlights get a meaning. Remember in the beginning, in the first wash, they just looked like a yellow mark. Gina, it's amazing. It amazes me how artists can paint metal and glass. It looks awesome. Yep. It's all about those, building it up step by step, details, following your vision. You'll be able to do it. Now, one big part here is how there are some smooth edges and hard edges. You see there's this wave that is hard-edged, but then there's the rounded, smooth edge. Captain Eyeball, hi from Czech Republic. Thanks for doing this. Thank you so much for being here. I actually visited Prague, in particular, 3 times in my life. Once with my family and then twice with friends. I went there once, then I went back. So yeah, it's so funny. But I haven't been anywhere else in the Czech Republic. But I loved Prague. I had a great time every single time. Great food, great people. Tambo Artwork, have you seen John Salminen's watercolor paintings? If not, check out his work. Yes, I'm familiar with it. He's great. He's really good. And I believe he did the speech for the AWS event, right? I saw a video of his on YouTube. Yeah, he's great. He's great. I like his work a lot. I wouldn't say it's my top 5 but he's great. John Salminen. He has some pieces that are insane, that look so realistic and believable. Yeah, I'm just opening it up just to get a refresher. I love his work. Great. Yep, definitely. So yeah, we're really close to the end of the process. Adding a few darks there. Now the darks can really tell a story because we darkened everything around them, right? And as you darken, you'll find other things that need more darkening, and that's how it works. So I'm pretty much repeating the same shapes I did earlier. And now you see I'm going to have to darken the yellow darks within the yellow where the olive oil is. So I'm going to do that as well. But I'm skipping that highlighted reflection. And that really adds to the look there, cohesive look. Blending some of the edges there. Now it's all about completing and adding small shapes to wherever needs fixing. See, like this area there needed fixing, and then I blended the edge. It's just small optimizations. The painting is... Officially, it could be done. I could add texture to the wall behind. I chose not to. I don't know why. I think it would have looked great, but I just paused. Fixed a bit of that reflection there, made it a little darker. Making some areas a little warmer, actually. I wasn't looking for darkness, per se. Felt like they weren't warm enough. Because remember, this is oil. And then the vinegar inside is reflected in it. I love this container, by the way. I'm going to do another, just darken some areas there on that coffee bean box. I'm going to darken one more time, so there will be more darkening to the lower part of the countertop. My name is Liron. I used to love painting water taps. Involves a lot of fundamentals, lots of difficult shapes, can be done using just grayscale and practicing wet and wet. Yes, it's very similar to the kettle here. Indeed, I love these. And a lot of abstract shapes. If you've seen, I'm sure you're familiar with my video on shiny surfaces. I did the Mercedes logo. Same concept, I love this. Lots of abstract shapes. Actually great for beginners. Yeah, I agree. It looks hard on the surface to draw these things and to paint them. Actually, not so much. So yeah. Let's see where this section is going. I love the way it looks. This is, to me, done. I'm just going to add a few darks there, wet and wet, under the bottle. But for me, this section is done. Now I'll need to darken the shadow under the kettle and the mortar and that other section of the countertop. Yes, I love this. And yeah, I needed to justify some of the darks behind the bottle, so I kind of go over that. Go over and darken these shadows as well. And look at how this nice smooth transition. And some wet and wet while I can to make a smooth transition from dark to lighter. And I'm going to just let this entire thing spill upwards with some wet paint to help it move up. That's something I like doing sometimes for the bottoms of objects. It can really help. I think it could be even darker, actually. And big brush, get that lower section of the countertop. Now, this is where you want to pay attention to. I mentioned that how do I know it's done? I look at it from afar. If the overall composition works, it's just done. This part right here is when I take the final composition to its conclusion, because that's when I close off that entire lower left corner. Again, look at the before. It's open, it's still very light, and the after, it's done. That's when the overall composition comes together. It's a large area that I finally close off with a very rich, dark, warm shadow, by the way. You see I'm warming it up just a bit. But the most important thing when you're doing this kind of wet and wet is if you want the paint to last, you'll mix it thicker than what's on paper. That's the key to that in particular. Now, from this point on, it's just final touches. I'm making the yellow a little stronger. Did a glaze, look at the yellow before and after. Look at how much brighter it is. I'm going to have to make the reflection same thing, stronger and darker, because it's way too out there. See, like that. And that's why I like doing these things gradually. Thin yellow, thin yellow, thin yellow, boom. Before you know it, it's saturated yellow. And some small darkening over the lower section of the kettle. I'm pre-wetting some areas, and then I'll come back with some dark paint to really get the smooth transition of that lower section into the shadow underneath it. It's not necessarily easy technically, but now we're working in smaller sections, so it is a little easy that way. And you can already see my reflection there holding the phone and the countertop where it begins, how it transitions to the light section and the reflection of the mortar in it and all of those good stuff that really tell the story. Smooth. Here I'm going to warm this side to really show that's the reflection of the mortar that's warm. The biggest warm element here. Now, out of choice, I decided not to darken the mortar all the way through. It felt like it would look too dull. I wanted to maintain this bright color. So if anything, I'm going to do just a thin glaze over it. Adding a few of these more abstract darks there. Enhancing the impression on the bottle. This shows, again, the box behind it a little better. The container, sorry. I keep calling it box. It's just a container. Look at how rich the oil looks now, man. I love this. Now things are connecting. So when I look at this, I'm like, yeah, it's close to done. It's close to done. Maybe a few minor details. Now we're in the highlights. So let me zoom in just a bit because we haven't had too many highlight work there before. Go. Very small touches. There isn't too much of it here going on. In terms of highlights, just sorry about that. Just getting a few of these, shapes. To the art, how do you make your paper flat? Usually if I paint in small sections, like this, most of this painting was, I didn't cover the whole thing. It works itself out. It bends very gently. Sometimes it just stays bent throughout most of the process, like this. As soon as I finished halfway through, it just stayed bent. You can see it here. And I just work with it that way. It's not a big problem. Or I'll use a hairdryer to dry it. It can help flatten it, but usually what will happen is the paper will start curving. So what I do is I flip it upside down and I use the hairdryer on the other side, which flattens it back a bit. So using the hairdryer on both sides can really help there. Which is something maybe some haven't considered doing. Because you wouldn't guess just to do it. I'm adding a few small highlights there on the top because of the shape of the plastic. It changes direction. It leads to some interesting effects there. And these highlights are just it. I just kind of winged it, honestly. There was a nice little reflection of light. I don't know if it's a lens flare over there that I wanted to show, so I included that. I'm going to darken this with just clean orange. I wanted to enhance the color, not darken the value too much, because as I told you, I don't want this mortar to be too dark. Hey Cubswin, how are you? What's status of car watercolor book? Man, I'm so bad at it. It's just stuck right now in limbo. I haven't given up on it, but it's stuck in limbo. right now, I will admit. Maybe I'll look for a different service for printing on demand. Maybe not Amazon. I don't know. There were a few technical difficulties, actually. Technical difficulties and design issues that I'm not sure how to get over, and I don't want to put out an inferior product. So I just didn't put it out yet. Sorry about that. I know some people are interested in that. My name, Liron. Is that your Levinson brush for highlights? Yes, I use it a lot for highlights. This one, right next to me. Always accessible for highlights, for signing my name, for mixing small amounts of opaque paint. I use it all the time. And I'm using my blending brush here to blend that line that I mentioned to you earlier. And this is the end of the process. It's literally the end. If I push play, it's going to rewind to the beginning. But this is it. Let me bring up the final scanned results, just so we can maybe appreciate it one more time. I know I've shown it multiple times, but whatever. Work, painting projects, making a Pesto scan, final scan. Okay, it's a huge file, but you will get to see all of the details finally. So yeah, this is it, the final result. I'm going to give you a sidebar again. You can see here, if you want to paint convincing realistic watercolors, check out the Watercolor Realism course. It's similar to this process. This is why I put this banner here. But let's place it right there. If you want to see some more zoomed in details, of course, I'd be happy to. See here, see the kettle. Tons of little details there. And myself, very abstract, but still you can see me holding my phone, taking the picture. And then you get the mortar. And of course, that bottle with that beautiful highlight kind of reflection there. I love the buildings up top. I love the transitions. Everything here works pretty much the way I envisioned it. Very grateful for that. Thank you, Adria. Thank you, Gina. So yeah, this is pretty much the process. It's a painting I worked on for quite a long time. I'm not sure I'll probably, if the auction house would be interested in it, I may auction it in the next auction if I participate. Hopefully I will, of course. And yeah, maybe I'll sell it on the gallery. I don't know, who knows. But this is a good example of a painting I put quite a bit of effort into. Now, if you want to take this to the next level and add a few more details, you can make this look much more detailed with maybe 20 more minutes of work. Just by adding a few details to the surface of the marble, the countertop, the building behind. Quite simple, actually, from this point. But I love the smooth, almost shiny feel it has due to the fewer details. I actually really like it. So I decided to stop there. By the way, look at the small blue. You can see it if I point my finger straight line from here. You'll see some blue highlights or blue stains on the kettle itself on its right side. That was a big part too, because it does reflect the buildings in the sky. Let's see what you're saying. My name, very nice, Ron. Thank you for sharing your entire painting process and answering my question. Yeah, my pleasure. This is the best way for me to, interact with you directly and answer a bunch of questions. So I really appreciate you being here. And I love that there's 47 viewers and 82 likes. So thank you so much for that. Adria, I noticed I saw your phone in the reflection. Yeah, it's a very loose kind of thing. You may be able to tell even what jacket I'm wearing. It's the one with the flag here stitched to it. It's so funny. I can recognize it because it has this line that's bright, and you can see it here. Marjorie, thank you so much. L'art du dessin. Great advice about making the paint thicker than what's going on paper. Reflective objects give the context of the story as they reflect the environment. Yep. I love playing with the reflections. Buck, yes, very beautiful painting. Thank you for showing this process and answering our questions. Very inspirational. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up. We've been going for 2 hours. It's decent. If you stuck through to the end, you have my everlasting appreciation. Again, if you want to take a more realistic turn, check out the Watercolor Realism course. Link will be in the description box. If you do want to check out the auction, I didn't even link to it. How are you supposed to find it? If you do want to check it out, I think it's an opportunity to get a painting for a lower than usual price. It is this Serenity. Check it out. Currently sitting at $70, which I would honestly be happy if it sold for that too. I have it here right under this. So yeah, super grateful to anyone who bid on that. I will try and do more auctions on a more regular basis, like once a month, maybe even with multiple paintings. I talked about it with someone over email because it's fun. It's a fun thing to do, you know. It's just a fun thing to do, is see what people will price the artwork. What else did I miss? Pay the guy, seeing reference. It seems you are a great photographer too. Yeah, not really, actually. The photo is... I took a lot of them. I took a lot of them in different crops, different zoom-ins to make sure I find the perfect one. I think because of the painting, it looks like the photo is better. That photo is okay. It's decent. It's not the most perfect one. I'm saying it because I've been looking at it for a year or two on my phone. I'm like, I don't feel like painting it. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And are you using acrylic with a dip pen for the highlights? Not really. I am occasionally using acrylics for details and highlights. This one didn't have any of that, but for the Fabergé egg, I did use some acrylics. I don't know. I find that watercolor ends up being more opaque for the most part. My acrylics, if I take them straight out of the tube and place them, it doesn't look bright enough. I don't know why. Gouache is better for that purpose, if anything. Amina, we appreciate your work and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much. Adria, thank you for being here. Tambo Artwork, thank you for being here as well. John, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Jan's Art, as a realistic painter, I appreciate when you do more realism. I'm a slave to details. They can be addictive, but I try to stop before things get too busy. Best of luck. Yeah, same to you, and thank you so much for the kind words, Jan's Art. Thank you, L'Art du Design. Yeah, and you know, if you want to paint more detailed, go for it. Don't let anyone steer you away from that. I just go with the flow, really. No rules for myself. Really just where it carries me. Sometimes I feel like going loose. I allow it. It's the easiest thing to do. Just go with the flow of the river. You don't have to work hard at it. You know, it just carries you. Thank you, and thank you so much, Buck. Really do appreciate it. For all my courses, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee anyway. So if you kind of know, if you feel like it's not for you, which, you know, for some people it won't be, you can get your money back. So no worries about that. Just email me for that. And yeah, if you're having any trouble accessing it, any hard time, you don't get an email, just send me an email, and I'll send you the instructions manually, whatever it is. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next live stream and in the next video, Saturday. There will be a video. Look forward to it. It is about a cool little technique that can help you in a few cases. Just quick win. So thank you so much. We'll talk to you again real soon. Take care. Keep painting. Love you all. Much appreciated.